9 abused by my son, a mother's silent life of fear and control. My name is Monica, and I'm 61 years old. Last night, my own son hit me until I bled over a bowl of unsalted soup. While I was left on the kitchen floor, wiping up my own blood with an old rag, he calmly went to his room, closed the door, and fell asleep as if nothing had happened, as if hitting his own mother was the most normal thing in the world. This morning, I woke up with a sore body, bruises on my arms, and a cut on my lip that still hurts when I talk. But what hurts the most isn't the physical pain. It's the humiliation. It's knowing that my own son, the one I raised with so much love, the one I gave everything to, now sees me as his personal maid. It's knowing that my only purpose in this world is to serve him and stay quiet. I got up at 5 in the morning, just like every other day. Ethan was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table in his impeccable gray suit, scrolling through his phone. He didn't even look at me when I walked in. He just said, without looking up, "Breakfast, hurry up, I have an important meeting." It was as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't screamed at me the night before, calling me worthless and useless, saying that if I weren't his mother, he would have thrown me out on the street. I prepared his scrambled eggs exactly how he likes them. 3 spoonfuls of shredded cheese, 2 slices of toasted bread, and black coffee with no sugar. Everything had to be perfect, measured down to the last detail, because if anything is even slightly off, he explodes. And when Ethan explodes, I'm the one who pays the price. While he was eating breakfast, the sound of a key turning in the front door lock echoed through the house. It was a young, elegant woman named Savannah, his wife, who always greets me with a fake smile and treats me like I'm invisible. She came in wearing a light green dress and high heels, kissed Ethan on the cheek, and sat at the table as if she owned the place. "Good morning, Mrs. Davis," she said to me in that sweet voice she only uses when Ethan is around. "How are you this morning?" I wanted to tell her that I woke up bruised by her husband, that I had marks all over my back, that I couldn't take it anymore. But instead, I smiled and said, "I'm fine, thank you." "Are you going to have some breakfast, Savannah?" I asked. Ethan shot me a warning look. His eyes said it all. One wrong word and tonight will be worse. Then he added with that fake smile he only uses when he has an audience, "Look, Mom, I bought you this new makeup. It's perfect for covering those little scrapes you got when you tripped last night." Yes, little scrapes. That's what he calls what he did to me. As if it were an accident. As if I had tripped and fallen on his fist all by myself. I took the makeup without saying a word. It was an expensive foundation, the kind that costs more than $50. He probably bought it with my retirement money since he manages my entire bank account. He says it's for my own good, that at my age I can't handle money anymore. The truth is, I haven't seen a single penny of my pension in 2 years. Savannah looked at him with those shining eyes of admiration. "You're so thoughtful, honey. Always taking care of your mom." If only she knew. If only she knew that her perfect husband, the successful executive who handles million-dollar accounts at the office, comes home every night to take out his frustration on me. After breakfast, Ethan put on his red tie, grabbed his briefcase, and whispered in my ear while Savannah was touching up her makeup. "Remember what we talked about last night? If you ever open your mouth, if you tell anyone what happens here, you'll regret it. No one will believe you. You're just a crazy old woman living off her son's charity." His words chilled me to the bone. They left together, holding hands like the perfect couple they pretend to be. I watched them from the window as they got into Ethan's new car, a black sedan that cost more than $400,000. My money, all of it bought with my money. When the house finally fell silent, I sat in the kitchen and started to cry. Not tears of sadness, but of rage and helplessness. Because I know I have to do something, but I don't know what. I know I can't keep living like this, but I also don't know how to get out of this nightmare. I sat there for hours, watching the sunlight slowly crawl across the floor tiles. This house, Used to be my sanctuary. I bought it 30 years ago with the money I saved working as an executive secretary at the law firm of Sullivan and Associates. 40 years of my life dedicated to that job, getting up at 5 a.m., always on time, organizing the lives of others. I never imagined I'd end up a prisoner in my own home. It all started 3 years ago when Ethan divorced his first wife. He showed up at my door one night with a suitcase in his hand and that lost boy look that always melted my heart. "Mom, I need to stay here for a while, just until I sort out my financial situation," he said. He told me the divorce had left him bankrupt, that he'd lost his house, that he had nowhere to go. And I, like the foolish mother I've always been, opened my door and my heart. "Of course, son. This is your home, too." How naive. I didn't know I was inviting the devil to live with me. The first few months were normal. Ethan would get up early, go to work, come back at night, and we'd have dinner together. He even helped me with groceries. I thought we'd finally have the mother-son relationship I'd always dreamed of. But little by little, things started to change. First, it was small comments. "Mom, this food is too salty." "Mom, why don't you clean the bathroom better?" "Mom, your clothes are too wrinkled. It's embarrassing." Those comments hurt, but I justified them. I told myself he was just stressed from the divorce. Then he started getting into my finances. "Mom, at your age, you shouldn't be handling so much cash. It's dangerous. Let me help you with your accounts." And I, like the idiot I am, gave him access to my bank account. He's just helping me, I thought. He's my son. He'd never hurt me. How wrong I was. Within 6 months, Ethan had completely taken over my money. My monthly $100 and $200 pension went straight into his account. He gave me $20 a week for personal expenses, as if I were a child receiving an allowance. When I asked about the rest of the money, he said, "Mom, I'm investing your savings to help them grow. Trust me." Then Savannah came along, a woman 25 years younger than him, with a perfect smile and ambition you could see from a mile away. Ethan met her at his office where she worked as a marketing assistant. 6 months later, they got married in a ceremony that cost over $100,000. My money, of course. Since Savannah came into our lives, everything got worse. Ethan started treating me like the housemaid. "Mom, make dinner for Savannah and me. Something elegant. She's used to fine things." "Mom, clean the guest bathroom. Important people are coming over." "Mom, wash this shirt by hand. It's too expensive for the washing machine." And I always obeyed. I obeyed because I was afraid. Afraid he'd get angry. Afraid he'd make good on his threat to kick me out of my own house. Because even though the house is legally mine, Ethan convinced me to put his name on the deed too, just in case something happens to you. The violence started a year ago. At first, it was accidental pushes, then pinches on my arm when I didn't do something the way he wanted. "You're driving me crazy, Mom. You're too slow." Then it escalated to hits on the shoulder, slaps when the food wasn't to his liking, punches to my back if I wasn't cleaning fast enough. But last night was different. Last night, he crossed a line I never thought he would cross. I had prepared vegetable soup for dinner. It was Tuesday, and we always have a light meal on Tuesdays. I carefully set the table, served the toasted bread and the hot soup. Everything was perfect. Ethan came home tired from the office, sat down without greeting me, took the first spoonful, and his face changed. "What the hell is this?" he yelled, spitting the soup back into the bowl. "It has no salt. It's as bland as water." I immediately apologized. "I'm sorry, son. I forgot the salt. Let me add a little—" But it was too late. Ethan stood up from the table like a wild animal, grabbed the bowl of soup, and threw it in my face. The hot liquid burned my cheek. Pieces of porcelain cut my lip. "You're useless," he screamed, grabbing my arm so hard I knew it would leave a bruise. 40 years working as a secretary, and you can't even make a decent soup. You're pathetic. He shoved me against the kitchen wall. My head hit the tile, and I saw stars. But he didn't stop there. He slapped me so hard my ear buzzed for hours. Then another, and another. "Savannah is bringing her friends over for lunch tomorrow," he said while I covered my face with my hands. "I want you to prepare something special, and you'd better make sure it's perfect. If you make me look bad, if you show even one sign of how pathetic you are, I swear to God I'll kick you out of this house." Then, as always, he calmed down. He bent down, helped me up, and wiped the blood from my lip with a napkin. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said softly. "I just get so frustrated seeing you like this. I know you can do better. It's all for your own good, so you'll learn." And then he went to sleep peacefully, as if nothing had happened. I stayed awake all night in the kitchen, cleaning up the soup and the broken porcelain from the floor. Every little piece I picked up felt like I was picking up the fragments of my own dignity. My lip was still bleeding, but it wasn't just physical pain I was feeling anymore. It was something deeper, something darker. It was the realization that my own son, the person I loved most in this world, had become my tormentor. As I cleaned, I started to remember how we got here. Ethan wasn't always like this. When he was a boy, he was sweet and affectionate. His father left us when he was 8, and from then on, it was just him and me against the world. I worked double shifts for years to give him everything he needed. I put him in the best private school I could afford. I bought him designer clothes, paid for piano lessons, English lessons, anything he asked for. Maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I spoiled him so much that he never learned the value of respect, of effort, of real love. I always gave him everything on a silver platter without asking for anything in return. And now, 35 years later, I'm the one paying the price for my decisions. At dawn, I heard his footsteps coming down the stairs. My heart started to beat fast, as it always does when he's near. It's incredible how a person can live in a constant state of alert in their own home. He came into the kitchen, already dressed in his black suit, checking his phone like he always does. This time, he didn't even ask for breakfast. He just sat and waited for me to serve it. I prepared his scrambled eggs, his black coffee, his 2 slices of toasted bread, all in absolute silence. He ate while answering emails, as if I were invisible. At 7:30, Savannah arrived again. This time, she was wearing a tight yellow dress and high heels that echoed on the floor like hammer blows. She looked radiant, as always. I wonder if she ever notices the bruises on my arms, the marks, the way I flinch every time Ethan raises his voice. "Good morning, Mrs. Davis," she said with that plastic smile. "How are you? Feeling today?" "Fine, thank you," I lied, as always. "Are you going to have some breakfast?" I asked. "Just a coffee, please," she said, "a light one with artificial sweetener." As I was serving her coffee, I noticed her watching me from the corner of her eye. Her gaze stopped on my swollen lip, on the bruise peeking out from the collar of my blouse. For a moment, I thought she might say something, that she might ask what had happened to me. But instead, she simply looked away and went back to her phone. Ethan finished his breakfast and looked at me intently. "Remember what I told you last night, Mom? Savannah is bringing 3 of her friends over for lunch. I want you to prepare something special. Seafood, pasta, Caesar salad, desserts, and buy some white wine. The good stuff, not that cheap garbage you're used to buying." He handed me 3 $20 bills as if it were some grand act of generosity. $60 to prepare lunch for 5 people, while he spends more than that on a single shirt. Then he leaned in closer, whispering in my ear while Savannah wasn't looking. "Put on that makeup I bought you. Cover those marks well. If any of her friends ask anything strange, if they make any comment about your appearance, you're going to regret it. Do you understand me?" I nodded, feeling my hands tremble slightly. He smiled, kissed my forehead like the perfect son he pretends to be, and they left together. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a kitchen chair. $60 for an elaborate lunch. Fresh seafood costs at least $30 a pound. The good wine, another $20. How was I supposed to work miracles with so little money? But it wasn't just the money that weighed on me. It was the pressure of having to act normal in front of Savannah's friends, of pretending to be the happy mother-in-law of a perfect family, when in reality I was an abused woman in my own home. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized my reflection. My lip was swollen and purple, a small cut at the corner of my mouth. My eyes were red and puffy from crying. The bruise on my neck looked like a dark stain spreading toward my collarbone. I opened the makeup Ethan had given me, an expensive imported foundation, the kind elegant women like Savannah use every day. I started applying it carefully, covering every mark, every bruise, every trace of what really happens in this house. As I put on my makeup, I couldn't help but think about all the other times I'd done this before. How many mornings I had woken up to hide bruises, to invent excuses about falls and accidents. I tripped on the table, the closet door slipped, I fell down the stairs. One lie after another, all to protect my son's reputation. I went out shopping with my list in hand and my perfectly made-up face. At the supermarket, I tried to stretch those $60 as far as possible. I bought frozen shrimp instead of fresh prawns. The cheapest brand of wine that wasn't terrible. Pasta on sale. Every single penny mattered. As I waited in line to pay, an older woman approached me. It was Clarice, my next-door neighbor, a widow in her 60s who had always been kind to me. "Hello, Monica," she said with a warm smile. "How are you doing, dear? I haven't seen you in the yard lately." "Hello, Clarice," I said. "I'm fine, thanks. I've just been really busy with stuff around the house." She looked at me intently, and I noticed her eyes linger on my lip despite the makeup. "Did you hurt your mouth?" she asked with genuine concern. My heart started to race. "No, it's nothing," I lied quickly. "I just bumped into the closet door last night. You know how clumsy I am." Clarice frowned but didn't press further. "Well, if you ever need anything, you know where I live. I'm always home in the afternoons." Her words went straight to my heart. It had been so long since anyone had offered me genuine help, since anyone had treated me with true kindness. For a moment, I wanted to tell her everything, to beg for help, to confess the nightmare I was living. But Ethan's voice echoed in my head. "If you ever open your mouth, if you tell anyone what happens here, you're going to regret it. No one will believe you. You're just a crazy old woman living off her son's charity." "Thank you, Clarice," I said simply. "You're very kind." I went back home and started cooking like a madwoman. I had to have everything ready by noon when Savannah and her friends arrived. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, set the table with the good china, and arranged flowers in the center. Everything had to be perfect. While I cooked, I couldn't stop thinking about what Clarice had said. "If you ever need anything, you know where I live." Did she suspect something? Had she heard the screaming that came from my house at night? At 11:30, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Davis?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, this is she." "This is the accountant from your son Ethan's company. We need to speak with you urgently about some discrepancies in the accounts. Could you come to the office this afternoon?" My heart stopped. Discrepancies? I don't understand. "I'd rather not discuss this over the phone, Mrs. Davis. Can you come at 3 this afternoon? It's very important." I hung up, my hands trembling. What could Ethan have done at work? Why were they calling me? A bad feeling settled in my stomach, but I didn't have time to think about it because Savannah and her friends were already arriving. The doorbell rang at exactly noon. I took a deep breath, touched up my makeup one last time, and went to open the door. There was Savannah with her 3 friends, all dressed as if they were going to a fashion show. Expensive dresses, designer purses, shoes that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Hello, Mrs. Davis," Savannah said in that sweet voice she uses for special occasions. "Let me introduce you to my friends. This is Beatrice. She works in human resources. This is Brenda from marketing, and this is Evelyn from legal." My heart nearly stopped when I heard Evelyn's name. It couldn't be a coincidence. I looked at her closely, and sure enough, it was her. Evelyn Brooks, my younger sister, whom I hadn't seen in more than 2 years. Evelyn looked at me with the same shock, but we both played it cool. She's always been smarter than me, more cautious. She immediately understood that something strange was going on, especially when she saw my made-up face and nervous demeanor. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Davis," she said formally, as if she didn't know me. "Your daughter-in-law has told us so much about you." I invited them into the dining room where I had put out my best tablecloth, the china I'd inherited from my mother, and the crystal glasses I only used for special occasions. Everything looked elegant, just as Ethan had demanded. I served lunch, trying to keep my hands steady. The shrimp pasta had turned out well despite the limited budget. The Caesar salad looked fresh, the bread warm. I even managed to prepare a simple tiramisu for dessert. The women ate and talked about work, their lives, and their weekend plans. I went back and forth from the kitchen, serving more wine and clearing plates like the perfect hostess I was supposed to be. But Evelyn's eyes never left me. I knew that look. It was the same one she had when we were kids, and she knew I was hiding something. "The food is delicious," Beatrice commented. "Did you cook all of this yourself, Mrs. Davis?" "Yes," I replied with a forced smile. "I love to cook. It's a pleasure when it's for such lovely people as yourselves." "How lucky Ethan is to have such a dedicated mother-in-law," Brenda added. "It's hard to find women so devoted to the home these days." Savannah smiled proudly. "It's true. Mrs. Davis always takes care of everything. It's like having a housekeeper, but better, because she does it with love." Her words stung me like daggers, but I kept my smile. A housekeeper. That's what she thought of me. Not a mother, not a woman with dignity, but a free servant. Evelyn cleared her throat. "And what did you do before, Mrs. Davis? Were you always a homemaker?" I paused, feeling a little pride for the first time in a long while. I worked for 40 years as an executive secretary at the law firm of Sullivan and Associates. I retired 3 years ago. Evelyn's eyes lit up. Sullivan and Associates was one of the city's most prestigious firms, where she had once interned during law school. "How interesting," she exclaimed. "I know that firm. They have an excellent reputation. You must have met a lot of important people in all those years." "I did," I said with a more genuine smile. "Judges, prosecutors, lawyers. I even helped with some big cases. Mr. Sullivan always said I was indispensable." Savannah looked uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. She didn't like me being the center of attention or having my professional accomplishments mentioned. She quickly changed the subject. "Well, but now Mrs. Davis is retired and enjoying her well-deserved rest," she said with that fake smile. "Ethan takes care of everything, her finances, her needs. He's such a responsible son." Evelyn looked at me intently. I know my sister, and I know those words sounded strange to her. A woman who worked 40 years at an important law firm doesn't need her son to handle her finances. The lunch continued with trivial chatter, but I could feel the tension growing. Evelyn kept watching me, and I knew she had noticed something was wrong. When I went to the kitchen to get dessert, she followed me. "Do you need any help?" she asked, but she was really looking for a moment to talk to me alone. "No thanks. Everything's under control," I replied, avoiding her gaze. "Monica," she said softly, using my real name for the first time that afternoon, "are you okay? You seem different." For a moment, all my defenses fell. I wanted to hug her, tell her everything, beg her for help. But then I heard Ethan's keys in the front door. He'd come home earlier than usual. "Everything's fine, Evelyn," I said quickly. "I'm just a little tired." Ethan came into the dining room with that perfect smile he uses when he has visitors. He greeted the women elegantly, kissed Savannah on the cheek, and looked at me with approval. The lunch had gone well, just as he had ordered. "How are the most beautiful ladies from the office doing?" he said, flashing that fake charisma he always used in public. "I hope my mother took good care of you." "Excellently," Beatrice replied. "Your mother is charming." Ethan put his hand on my shoulder, and I tensed up immediately. He felt my reaction and squeezed harder, a silent warning. "She's the best mother in the world," he said, his fingers digging into my shoulder through the blouse. "Always looking out for everyone, always sacrificing herself for the family." The women started saying their goodbyes after dessert. Evelyn was the last to leave, and before she stepped out the door, she took my hand. "It was a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Davis," she said loudly for Ethan to hear, but then she whispered in my ear, "We'll see each other soon." When they were gone, Ethan closed the door and his expression changed completely. The mask of the perfect son vanished, and he was the monster again. "You did well," he said coldly. "For once, you didn't embarrass me." It wasn't a compliment. It was confirmation that I had fulfilled my duties as his servant. While I was cleaning the dining room and washing dishes, he went to his room to change clothes. But before he left, he reminded me, "By the way, the technician is coming tomorrow to check your computer. He says you've been browsing some strange websites." My blood ran cold. I didn't have my own computer. I only used his when I needed to. And the only strange things I had looked up lately were websites about domestic abuse, shelters for battered women, and helplines. He knew I had been looking for information. He knew I was considering asking for help. Just then my phone rang again. It was the accountant from Ethan's company. "Mrs. Davis, can you come in at 3 this afternoon? It's urgent." I looked at the clock. It was 2:15. Ethan was in his room, probably taking a nap. It was my chance. "Yes," I said quietly. "I'll be there." I grabbed my keys, my purse, and quietly left the house. I didn't know what was waiting for me at that office, but I had a feeling my life was about to change forever. As I walked toward the bus stop, I remembered Evelyn's words. "We'll see each other soon." My sister had noticed something, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a small spark of hope. The office building where Ethan worked was one of those modern downtown skyscrapers, glass and steel towering with quiet authority. I had never been there before. For years, my son had kept his work life completely separate from me, as if it were a secret I wasn't allowed to know. I went up to the 18th floor where the offices for Northern Business Corporation were. The receptionist, a young woman with a professional smile, directed me to the accountant's office. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. "Mrs. Davis," a man in his 50s with glasses and a formal suit, greeted me. "I'm Adrian Castillo, the general accountant for the company. Thank you for coming so quickly." I sat down in front of his desk, trying to seem calm even though I was trembling inside. His expression was serious, too serious. "Ma'am, I need to ask you some questions about your bank account," he began, opening a folder full of documents, specifically about some movements we've detected in the last few months. "I don't understand," I said with a trembling voice. "What does my account have to do with the company?" Adrian looked at me with a mix of pity and concern. "Mrs. Davis," he said, "we've discovered that your son, Ethan, has been using company funds to make transfers to your personal bank account, transfers that are then withdrawn from your account." I felt as if I'd been punched in the stomach. "That can't be true," I whispered. "Ethan is an exemplary employee. He would never do something like that." "I'm afraid he has," Adrian said, showing me a stack of documents. "In the last 6 months, he's diverted more than $50,000 of corporate funds. The money first appears in his personal account, and then it's immediately transferred to the account he shares with you." My world collapsed. $50,000. My son wasn't just physically abusing me. He was using me as an unwitting accomplice in his thefts. "But I didn't know anything," I said desperately. "He manages my entire bank account. I don't authorize any transfers." "We know," Adrian said gently. "That's why I called you before proceeding legally. We need you to file a formal complaint for the misuse of your bank account. It's the only way to clear your name in this matter." I felt sick. Not only was I a victim of domestic violence, but now I was a victim of financial fraud. And worst of all, my own son had turned me into his accomplice without me even knowing. "What will happen to Ethan?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. If you file the complaint, he'll be arrested for corporate fund embezzlement and fraudulent use of bank accounts. These are serious crimes that can lead to 5 to 10 years in prison. I left that office in total shock. I wandered the downtown streets for hours, without direction, trying to process what I had just learned. My son, a thief, a criminal, and I had been his tool all along. When I finally got home, it was 6 p.m. Ethan was in the living room watching television as if it were any normal day. When he saw me come in, he looked at me with that familiar expression of superiority. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "I got home from work and you weren't here. The house was a mess after lunch." For the first time in years, I looked him directly in the eyes without lowering my gaze. "I was at your office." His expression changed immediately. The mask of control cracked for a second, and I saw fear in his eyes. "What did you say?" "I was at your office, Ethan. I spoke with the accountant. I know what you've been doing." He got up from the couch slowly, like a predator preparing to attack. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. I think you're confused." $50,000, I said, my voice growing steadier. $50,000 you've stolen from your company using my bank account. Ethan came closer, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't back away. Something had changed inside me that afternoon. Maybe it was knowing that I wasn't alone, that other people knew the truth. "Listen to me, you stupid old woman," he hissed. "You have no idea what you're saying. That money is mine by right. You owe me for everything I've invested in you over these years. The food you eat, the roof over your head, the clothes you wear." "With my own money," I replied. "My pension, my savings, the money I earned working for 40 years. He grabbed my arm, but this time I didn't stay silent. "Let go of me," I screamed with all the strength I had. He was so shocked by my reaction that he actually let go. For 3 years, I had been his silent victim, and now, for the first time, I was yelling at him. "You're crazy," he spat, but his voice didn't sound so confident anymore. "No one will believe you. You're a senile old woman who doesn't even know what she's saying." "The accountant believed me," I said. "The documents speak for themselves. The transfers are registered. Everything is documented." Ethan stood silent for a few seconds, processing what I had said. Then his expression hardened again. "If you open your mouth, if you file any kind of complaint, I swear I'll destroy you," he threatened. "This house is also in my name. I can throw you out on the street tomorrow, and without my help, without my money, you'll die alone like a dog." But this time, his threats didn't scare me. There was something different in me, a strength I didn't know I had. "I'm not afraid of you anymore, Ethan," I told him, and as I said it, I realized it was true. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't afraid of him. He raised his hand to hit me. But just then, the doorbell rang. It was Clarice, my neighbor. "Monica!" she shouted from outside. "Monica, is everything all right? I heard screaming." Ethan slowly lowered his hand. He couldn't hit me with a witness nearby. His reputation was too important. "Go see what she wants," he growled through gritted teeth. "And you'd better not say anything strange." I went to the door, my legs trembling. Clarice stood there with a worried look, holding a casserole dish. "Hello, dear," she said softly. "I brought you some stew I made, but I heard loud voices and got worried." Over her shoulder, I saw another woman standing there. It was Evelyn, my sister. She was wearing casual clothes, her hair tied back, but I recognized her immediately. "Hello," Evelyn said, pretending she didn't know me. "I'm new to the neighborhood and was just visiting Mrs. Davis. I hope we're not disturbing you." Ethan appeared behind me, his fake smile perfectly in place. "No problem at all, ladies," he said smoothly. "My mother was just a little worked up because she burned the dinner. You know how older women get about these things." Clarice looked at him with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Right," she said finally. "Well, Monica, here's the food. And remember, if you need anything at all, I'm right next door." Evelyn met my eyes. "Yes, Mrs. Davis," she said pointedly. "Anything you need, day or night." When they left, Ethan slammed the door. "Damn nosy old women," he muttered. "But this isn't over. Tomorrow we're going to the bank together and you're going to sign all the papers I tell you to. You're going to retract the complaint you probably already filed, and you're going to say it was all a big misunderstanding." "No," I said quietly. "What do you mean, no?" "I'm not going to sign anything. I'm not going to retract any complaint, and I'm not going to be your accomplice anymore." Ethan looked at me with a rage I'd never seen before. It was as if all his masks had finally come off, revealing his true nature. "Fine," he said calmly, too calmly. "If that's how you want to play, we'll play. But I'm warning you, when I'm done with you, you'll wish you were never born." I didn't sleep that night. Ethan was locked in his room, but I could hear him talking on the phone for hours. I didn't know what he was planning, but I knew I had to be ready for the worst. At 3 a.m, I heard a noise in the yard. I peeked out the window and saw a figure moving among the bushes. It was Clarice. She seemed to be setting something up near my window. The next day, I found out what she had done. She had placed a small security camera, hidden among the plants, pointed straight at my house. My neighbor knew something terrible was happening and was documenting everything. The following morning was gray and rainy, as if the weather itself reflected the storm in my life. Ethan got up earlier than usual, 5 a.m. I heard him moving around, talking on the phone in a low voice, preparing something that filled me with dread. When I went down to the kitchen, he was already dressed in his best suit, the black one he wore to important meetings. His hair was perfectly combed, his tie straight. He looked every bit the successful executive everyone thought he was, not the monster who lived under my roof. "Good morning, Mom," he said in a strangely sweet, almost sing-song voice. "I hope you slept well." That sweetness made my skin crawl. I knew my son well enough to know that when he acted kind, it meant something terrible was coming. "Yes," I lied, pouring his coffee like always. "Good," he said, smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "Because today is going to be a very special day. I've been thinking about our conversation from yesterday all night." He sat down to eat breakfast calmly, as if nothing had happened, but his strange calmness kept me on high alert. "I've decided that you're right," he said suddenly. "Maybe I've been too hard on you. After all, you're my mother. You deserve respect." His words confused me completely. Ethan admitting fault? Apologizing? It was so out of character that I instantly knew it was a trap. "That's why," he continued as he buttered his toast, "we're going to go to the bank together today. We're going to clear up this whole misunderstanding with my company. You're going to explain that you authorized all the transfers, that you knew exactly what was happening with your money." There it was, the real reason behind his fake kindness. "I'm not going to do that, Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. His smile faded. "Of course you are, Mom, because if you don't, some very unpleasant things are going to happen." "Are you threatening me?" "No, Mom," he said smoothly, finishing his coffee. "I'm explaining reality to you. Look around. This house, this table, the bed you sleep in, the food you eat, all of it exists because I allow it. And if I stop allowing it—" He left the rest hanging in the air, but the message was clear. He'd throw me out with nothing. "Also," he added, taking out his phone, "I've been thinking about calling some doctors. I know specialists who deal with elderly people suffering from senile dementia. You know, it's very sad when mothers start making up stories, accusing their own sons of terrible things." I felt my blood run cold. Not only was he threatening to leave me homeless, he was planning to have me declared insane, so no one would believe a word I said. "There are several witnesses who can confirm your deteriorating mental state," he continued coldly. "Savannah, for instance. I told her just yesterday how confused you've been lately, and those friends who came for lunch, they noticed something strange about you too." It was all lies, but he said it so convincingly that for a moment I doubted my own mind. That was how his manipulation worked. He made me question everything, even reality. "So, "We're going to the bank at 10, he said, standing up. "You're going to wear your best dress, fix yourself up, and you're going to smile while you sign every paper they put in front of you. Understand?" I didn't answer. I just began collecting the breakfast dishes, trying to buy time to think. "I'm talking to you," he shouted, his fake kindness gone. "Understood?" "Understood," I mumbled, hating myself for sounding weak. Ethan left for his office, but before he did, he warned, "Don't even think about leaving this house. Don't talk to anyone on the phone. I'll be back at 9:30 to take you to the bank." As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a kitchen chair and started to cry. Not out of sadness, but pure rage. Rage at him. Rage at myself for ever letting things get this far. Then I heard a soft knock at the back door. It was Clarice, with an urgent look on her face. "Monica, open up fast," she whispered through the glass. "It's important." I opened the door and she slipped in, glancing around to make sure we were alone. "I heard everything," she said without hesitation. "I have the camera set up near your kitchen window. I recorded your whole conversation with your son." My heart started pounding. "Everything?" "Everything," she said. "The threats, the blackmail, the way he talked to you. I have proof that he's forcing you to lie about the stolen money." For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. "What can we do with that?" Clarice smiled. "I have a friend who works at the DA's office. Her name is Brenda, and she specializes in domestic abuse and financial fraud cases. But I need you to come with me right now." "I can't," I said, fear flooding back. "Ethan told me not to leave the house. If he finds out—" "Monica," Clarice said, taking my hands firmly, "listen to me. If you go to that bank today and sign those papers, your son will walk free. He'll keep stealing and he'll keep abusing you. But worse, you'll be seen as his accomplice." She was right. If I signed those papers, I'd lose not only my dignity but my freedom. "But if I don't go," I said weakly, "he'll follow through on his threats. He'll throw me out. He'll say I'm crazy." "He won't be able to do any of that," Clarice interrupted, "because we're going to present the evidence before he can act. Brenda told me that with the recordings I have, they can arrest him immediately." I looked at the clock. It was 8:30. Ethan would be home in an hour. "Are you sure your friend can help me?" "Completely sure," Clarice said. "But we have to go now, Monica. It's our only chance." I made the decision that would change my life forever. I went to my room, grabbed my purse with my most important documents, and left that house with Clarice. As we walked to her car, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Courage. For the first time, I was taking control of my own life. The district attorney's office was a typical government building, long corridors and small offices. Brenda turned out to be a woman in her 40s, with an intelligent gaze and a way of speaking that instantly inspired confidence. "Mrs. Davis," she said after reviewing the recordings Clarice had brought, "what your son is doing constitutes multiple crimes: domestic abuse, financial fraud, blackmail, and attempted obstruction of justice." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we can arrest him today," Brenda replied. "But I need you to file a formal complaint for all these crimes. Are you willing to do that?" I looked at the clock. It was 9:15. In 15 minutes, Ethan would be arriving home to take me to the bank. When he realized I wasn't there, his rage would be uncontrollable. "Yes," I said, feeling my voice grow firmer. "I'm ready to file the complaint." Brenda smiled. "Perfect. While you fill out the papers, I'll coordinate with the police to have them go and arrest your son. Do you know where he is right now?" "He should be arriving at my house," I said. "He said he'd pick me up at 9:30. "Even better," Brenda said, grabbing her phone. "It's easier to arrest him at a known location." While I was filling out the complaint forms, Brenda coordinated with the police. Clarice stayed with me the whole time, holding my hand, giving me strength. "Are you sure about this, Monica?" she asked softly. "Once we sign these papers, there's no turning back." "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I replied. At 10:30, Brenda's phone rang. It was the police confirming that they had arrested Ethan at my house. They found him screaming like a madman, breaking things and looking for me all over the place. "He's in custody," Brenda told me. "The charges are serious. It's very likely he won't be able to get bail." I felt as if a 1,000-pound weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in 3 years, I knew I was going to sleep without fear. When we got back to my house that afternoon, the place looked like a battlefield. Ethan had destroyed practically everything in his path before the police arrested him. The couch cushions were torn. Broken dishes covered the kitchen floor. Family photos that hung on the walls were in pieces. "My God," Clarice whispered, looking around in shock. "How could he do all this in such a short time?" I knew the answer. I knew the blind fury of Ethan when things didn't go his way. I had seen that rage before, but never directed at inanimate objects. Usually, I was the target. Brenda, who had come with us to document the damage, was taking photos of everything. "This will serve as additional evidence of his violent behavior," she explained. "Destruction of property during an episode of rage. The judge will see exactly what kind of person your son is." While we were cleaning up the broken glass and picking up the pieces of my former life, my phone started ringing insistently. It was an unknown number. "Don't answer it," Brenda warned me. "It's probably him calling from jail. Let it go to voicemail." Indeed, when I checked the messages, it was Ethan's voice, but it sounded completely different. It was no longer the threatening monster from the morning. It was the scared child he pretended to be when he wanted to manipulate me. "Mom," his voice said, breaking in the recording. "Mom, please come get me out of here. It was all a misunderstanding. I never meant to hurt you. You know I love you. You're the most important thing in my life. Please, Mom, don't let me rot in this jail. I'm your son, your only son." He had left 5 similar messages, each one more desperate than the last. In the final one, he was even crying. "It's part of his manipulation strategy," Brenda explained. "First violence and threats, now victimhood and guilt. It's a typical pattern in abusers." Even though I rationally understood what was happening, hearing my son cry broke my heart. For 35 years, he had been my baby, my reason for living. It was hard to separate the monster he had become from the boy he once was. "Are you okay?" Clarice asked, noticing my expression. "It's complicated," I admitted. "I know I did the right thing, but he's still my son." That night, Clarice insisted that I stay at her house. "Your house isn't safe right now," she said. "Ethan has friends, and maybe even Savannah. Someone might come looking for revenge." She was right. In the voicemails, Ethan had mentioned that Savannah was handling things from the outside. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I was afraid to find out. Clarice's house was small but cozy. It had a guest room with a twin bed and a small desk. "It was my daughter's room before she got married," she explained. "Now it's yours for as long as you need it." For the first time in 3 years, I went to bed without fear. I didn't have to worry about Ethan's footsteps in the hallway, his late-night screaming, or waking up to punches. It was a strange, almost unsettling feeling. Peace can also be scary when you're not used to it. The next day, Brenda called me early with news. "Ethan's bail hearing is today at 2 in the afternoon, she informed me. "The judge will decide if he can be released from jail while he waits for trial." "What are the chances he'll be released?" I asked, feeling the fear return. "With the evidence we have, very slim," she said. "But I need you to come and testify at the hearing. Your testimony will be crucial for the judge to understand the danger he poses." The hearing was held in a small courtroom. Ethan sat at the defense table, wearing an orange jumpsuit. When he saw me come in, his expression changed completely. He was no longer the repentant child from the voicemails. He was pure, contained rage. Savannah sat on the public benches, elegantly dressed as always, but she looked haggard, as if she hadn't slept in days. When our eyes met, I saw something unexpected in hers: shame. The The judge, an older man in his 60s with a serious but fair expression, reviewed all the documents before beginning. "Mrs. Davis," he said when it was my turn to testify, "tell me in your own words what you've been living through in your home for the last few years." I took a deep breath and began to speak. I told them about the beatings, the control over my money, the threats, and the constant humiliation. My voice broke at times, but I kept talking. When I mentioned the $50,000 he stole, I saw Ethan tense up in his seat. His lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit, kept trying to object, but the judge silenced him. "And what did your son tell you yesterday morning regarding your testimony?" the judge asked. "He threatened to have me declared mentally incompetent if I didn't lie for him. He told me he would kick me out on the street and that I would be left with nothing." The judge then reviewed the recordings Clarice had made. He listened to them in their entirety through headphones while the courtroom waited in silence. "Mr. Ethan Davis," the judge said when he was done, "the evidence presented shows a clear pattern of domestic abuse, financial fraud, and witness intimidation. Considering the seriousness of the charges and the risk you pose to the victim, your request for bail is denied. You will remain in custody until the date of your trial." Ethan exploded. "This is an injustice," he shouted, standing up. "That crazy old woman is making everything up. I'm a respectable citizen. I have rights." The guards had to restrain him as he continued screaming. "You're going to regret this, Mom. When I get out of here, I'm going to make you pay for every day I spend in this jail." His threats echoed through the courtroom, confirming everything I had testified about his violent nature. After the hearing, Savannah approached me in the courthouse. "Mrs. Davis," she said in a trembling voice, "I need to talk to you." Brenda and Clarice tensed up, but I signaled to them that I was fine. "What do you want, Savannah?" I asked. "I want to apologize," she said, and for the first time since I had known her, her voice sounded genuine. "I knew something wasn't right in that house. I heard the screaming. I saw your bruises. I noticed how you flinched every time he raised his voice." "Then why didn't you ever say anything?" I asked. "Because I was scared," she admitted. "Ethan had threatened me too. He told me that if I ever betrayed him, he'd destroy my career, my reputation, and I was a coward. I let you suffer alone because I was afraid of losing my comfortable life." Her eyes filled with tears. "When they arrested him yesterday, I found documents in his home office. He hadn't just been stealing from his company, he'd been stealing from my personal account. We've been married 2 years, and I never realized he was a fraudster." "What are you going to do now?" I asked. "I'm going to file for divorce immediately," she said with determination. "And I'm going to testify against him at his trial. I've already spoken with a lawyer. I want to collaborate with the DA's office to make him pay for everything he did to us." When we left the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Genuine hope. Not only had I managed to escape from my son, but now I had allies in my fight for justice. That afternoon, as we walked back to Clarice's house, Brenda gave me more good news. "The company where Ethan worked wants to reach an agreement," she said. "They're willing not to press additional charges against you if you cooperate by returning the stolen money. Also, as acknowledgement that you were a victim of fraud, they're going to pay you $20,000 in compensation." $20,000. It was more money than I'd had available in the last 3 years. "What about my house?" I asked. "Ethan said it was in his name too." "We checked the documents," Brenda said, smiling. "Your son lied. The deed is still only in your name. He forged some papers, but legally the house is completely yours." For the first time in a long while, I started to see a possible future, a future where I could live without fear, make my own decisions, and truly be the owner of my own life. But I also knew Ethan wasn't going to give up easily. His threats in the courtroom had been clear. This war was far from over. 3 weeks after Ethan's arrest, my life had completely changed, but not in the way I expected. Though I was physically safe at Clarice's house, psychologically I was still his prisoner. I had developed a constant paranoia that kept me awake most nights. Every noise made me jump. Every car that stopped in front of the house sent me running to the window. Every unknown phone call gave me a panic attack. Brenda had explained that it was normal, that after years of abuse, the fear doesn't disappear overnight. It's post-traumatic stress disorder, she said. Your mind and body are used to living in a constant state of alert. It's going to take time to heal. But there was more than just trauma. Ethan had managed to get messages to me from jail. Messages that chilled me to the bone. The first one came through a different lawyer, not his official representative. It was a handwritten letter, in the handwriting I knew so well. "Dear Mom," it said, "I hope you're enjoying your little victory. I hope you feel very brave for betraying me. But I want you to know something. This isn't over. I know things about you that no one else knows. Secrets you kept for 40 years working at that law firm. Things that could ruin not only your reputation, but your freedom." My heart stopped when I read those lines. What secrets? During my 40 years as a secretary at Sullivan and Associates, I had handled confidential information, of course, but I had never done anything illegal. "Remember the case of Williams versus the state, Mom?" The letter continued. "The one from 15 years ago? I found the documents you hid, the ones you altered to help Mr. Sullivan win that multi-million-dollar case. Documents that, if they come to light, could send you to prison for obstruction of justice." My hands started to tremble violently. I vaguely remembered the Williams case. It had been a difficult one, where the firm represented a pharmaceutical company accused of concealing fatal side effects of a medication. Mr. Sullivan had asked me to organize some documents to remove certain memos that could hurt his client. I thought it was normal, just part of my job as a secretary. I never fully understood the legal implications of what I had done. But Ethan was right. I had technically altered evidence in a court case. "I have copies of everything, Mom," the letter said. "And if you don't drop the charges against me, if you don't come and publicly apologize for your lies, those documents are going straight to the DA's hands. Imagine the headlines: 61-year-old secretary arrested for complicity in covering up drug deaths." The rest of the letter detailed exactly how he was going to destroy my life if I didn't obey. He had media contacts, he claimed. He knew journalists who would pay well for a story about judicial corruption. My photo would be in all the newspapers. My name would be forever associated with a scandal. When Clarice found me crying with the letter in my hands, she immediately called Brenda. "This is clear blackmail," Brenda said after reading it. "But we need to know if his threats have any basis. What exactly do you remember about the Williams case?" I told her everything I remembered, including the instructions Mr. Sullivan had given me about reorganizing the documents. "Did you know that what you were doing could be illegal?" she asked me. "No," I said honestly. "I was just following orders. Mr. Sullivan told me it was normal procedure to protect client confidentiality." Brenda sighed. "Legally, ignorance is no excuse. If you really altered evidence, even if it was without criminal intent, you technically did commit a crime." My world collapsed all over again. Just when I thought I had escaped from Ethan's clutches, he found another way to control me. "What do I do?" I asked desperately. "If I drop the charges, he gets out and he'll kill me. If I don't, I go to jail for something I did 15 years ago without knowing it was illegal." "First, calm down," Brenda told me. "Second, we're going to investigate exactly what documents your son has and how he got them. And third, we're going to look for ways to minimize the legal damage if it turns out there really is evidence against you." The next few days were a legal nightmare. Brenda worked with a team of lawyers who specialized in old cases to review the entire Williams case file. Meanwhile, I lived in a constant state of terror, waiting for them to come and arrest me at any moment. Clarice was my salvation during those dark weeks. Not only did she give me refuge in her home, but she became the sister I never had. Every night she would sit with me while I cried, make me chamomile tea to help me sleep, and constantly remind me that I wasn't alone. No matter what happens, she would tell me, we're going to face it together. You're no longer that scared woman who lived under her son's terrorism. But I felt exactly like that scared woman. Ethan had achieved what he wanted. He had returned me to the state of fear and hopelessness that had been my life for 3 years. A week later, the second letter arrived, even crueler than the first. I see you haven't learned your lesson, Mom. I see you still think you can defy me. That's fine. Now everyone is going to find out what kind of person you really are. Along with the letter, there was an envelope with photographs. Photographs of documents, internal memos from the firm of Sullivan and Associates with my handwriting on them, notes in the margins, dates that had been altered, pages missing from original files. These photos are going to be in the newspaper tomorrow night. If you don't come and visit me in jail before Friday, you'll come alone, without lawyers, without witnesses, and you'll bring a signed letter asking to drop all the charges against me because it was all a misunderstanding caused by your mental deterioration. My mental deterioration. That accusation chilled my blood all over again. If you don't come, not only will these photos be in the newspapers, but you'll also see the recordings. Recordings? What recordings? Did you think I didn't know you had cameras installed in the house, Mom? Did you think I was that stupid? I have recordings too. Recordings of you accepting cash from clients at the firm. Money you never reported as income. Tax evasion, Mom. Another 15 years in prison. This time, it wasn't just blackmail. It was full psychological warfare. Ethan had been preparing for this situation for months, maybe years. He had collected evidence, planned every move, and anticipated my rebellion. When Brenda read the second letter, her expression became very serious. Monica, I need you to tell me the complete truth about your time at the firm. Anything you might have done, any irregular situation, any money you received outside your salary. I told her about the cash Christmas bonuses that Mr. Sullivan gave me every year, money I never declared because I thought they were personal gifts. I told her about the times grateful clients had given me cash tips for special services, money I also never reported because I didn't know I had to. In total, she asked, how much money are we talking about over 40 years? Maybe $1,000, I said with shame. Brenda quickly calculated. With interest and penalties, we'd be looking at a tax debt of about $40,000. But the most serious thing was that it was technically tax evasion. My son had built the perfect trap. If I reported him, he would destroy me with evidence of my own mistakes. If I didn't, he would remain free to abuse me and steal money. There's a third option, Brenda said after thinking for a long time. An option neither of you will expect. We get ahead of him. We voluntarily confess all your mistakes before he can use them as blackmail. And we use that confession to show that your son is a master manipulator who exerts psychological control over his victims, even from jail. It was a risky gamble. It meant publicly admitting I had committed crimes, facing possible legal consequences, and exposing myself to public humiliation. But it also meant taking away Ethan's main weapon, my secret. If we do this, Brenda continued, your son loses all his power over you. He can no longer blackmail you because there's nothing left to hide. I looked out the window at my house, still empty and shattered across the street. That house represented my past, my mistakes, my fears, but it also represented my future, my freedom, my chance to start over. Let's do it, I finally told her. I'm tired of living in fear. I'm tired of my son controlling my life from a jail cell. Brenda smiled. Tomorrow we're going to give Ethan the surprise of his life. The day we decided to fight back arrived faster than I expected. Brenda had organized a press conference for 2:00 in the afternoon, where I would voluntarily confess all my past mistakes before Ethan could use them against me. It was a risky strategy, but it was our only chance to regain control of the situation. That morning, I woke up with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in years. For the first time since Ethan's arrest, I wasn't afraid. I had made a decision that would change my life forever, and strangely, I felt at peace with it. Clarice helped me get ready. I put on my most serious gray dress, the one I used for formal occasions when I worked at the firm. I added a bit of makeup, just enough not to look haggard, but without trying to hide who I really was. "Are you sure about this, Monica?" Clarice asked me for the 5th time that morning. "Once you say those words in public, there's no going back." "I'm completely sure," I replied, surprised by the firmness of my own voice. For 3 years, I lived as a prisoner in my own home out of fear of the consequences. I'm not going to remain a prisoner of my past mistakes. At noon, Brenda called me with unexpected news. "Monica, something extraordinary just happened. Raphael Miller, Ethan's boss at the company, wants to talk to you before the press conference." Raphael was the man who had discovered Ethan's thefts, the same man who had turned ashen when he found out the truth. I didn't understand why he wanted to talk to me. We met in Brenda's office. Raphael was a man in his 50s with gray hair and a presence that commanded respect. When he saw me come in, he immediately rose from his seat. "Mrs. Davis," he said to me in a warm but serious voice, "first I want to apologize. If I had supervised Ethan better, if I had paid attention to the red flags, maybe we could have prevented you from suffering so much." His words surprised me. "You had no way of knowing what was happening in my house." "Maybe not," Raphael said, sitting down in front of me, "but I did have a way of knowing that something strange was going on with the company's finances. Your son's thefts didn't start 6 months ago. They started 2 years ago." My heart stopped. 2 years? 2 years, Raphael confirmed. "Small amounts at first, so small that we attributed them to accounting errors. But when we started investigating after your complaint, we discovered he had been stealing systematically for a long time." Brenda leaned forward. "How much money are we talking about in total?" $130,000, Raphael said, "which went directly to accounts he controlled, including your bank account." I felt nauseous. Not only had I been a victim of physical and psychological abuse, but I had been the unwitting tool in a massive robbery for 2 entire years. "But there's more," Raphael continued. "When Ethan was arrested, our legal department decided to investigate more deeply. We discovered he had been forging reports, manipulating contracts, and even selling the company's confidential information to competitors." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Raphael smiled for the first time since the conversation had started. "Because we want to offer you a job, Mrs. Davis. A job. During our investigation, we reviewed your work history. 40 years at Sullivan and Associates, impeccable references, experience with complex cases. We need someone with your experience to help us rebuild everything your son destroyed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Instead of facing arrest and public humiliation, I was being offered a chance to start over. The salary would be $4,000 a month, Raphael continued, plus health benefits, plus a special compensation of $50,000 as recognition for the damage we unintentionally caused you. $4,000 a month was more than 3 times my current pension, and $50,000 in compensation. Suddenly, my future didn't look so hopeless. "But there's one condition," Raphael added. "We need you to testify at your son's trial. Your testimony will be crucial to ensuring he pays for all his crimes, not just the ones he committed against you." "Of course," I said without hesitation. "I'll do whatever it takes." At 2 hours in the afternoon, the press room was full of journalists, cameras, and microphones. Brenda had invited all the local media, explaining that a victim of domestic violence would be making an important statement about blackmail from jail. When I sat in front of those cameras, I felt a different fear than the one I had experienced for years. It wasn't fear of Ethan. It wasn't fear of beatings or threats. It was fear of freedom, the fear of being the owner of my own life. "My name is Monica Davis," I began, looking directly into the cameras. "I'm 61 years old, And for the last 3 years, I have been a victim of domestic violence by my son, Ethan Davis. I told my complete story: the beatings, the financial control, the threats, the systematic theft of my money. But I also told the part Ethan expected me to keep secret. During my 40 years working as a secretary at the law firm of Sullivan and Associates, I made mistakes, I said, feeling my voice grow firmer with each word. Mistakes that I didn't know were illegal at the time, but that I now recognize as such. I explained the Williams case, the altered documents, the unreported money, everything. I held nothing back. My son discovered these mistakes, and he has been using them to blackmail me from jail. He threatened to publicly expose me if I didn't drop the charges against him. Today, I am here to take that weapon away from him. I would rather face the consequences of my mistakes than continue to be a victim of his manipulation. The room was completely silent. The journalists were taking furious notes. The cameras were recording every word. I want to send a message to all the women who are being abused by their sons, husbands, or partners. I continued. Emotional blackmail, financial control, threats of exposure, they are all forms of abuse. Don't let the fear of public judgment keep you a prisoner. Freedom is worth more than reputation. After the press conference, Brenda informed me that the DA's office had decided not to press charges against me for my past mistakes. Your voluntary confession, combined with the fact that you were a victim of blackmail, makes you more useful as a witness than as a defendant, she explained. That night, for the first time in months, I returned to sleep in my own house. Clarice insisted on staying with me for the first few nights until I felt completely safe. As I lay down in my own bed, in my own home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 3 years: total control over my own life. Ethan was still in jail, facing multiple charges that would likely keep him there for many years. His blackmail had lost all its power because I no longer had any secrets to hide. My phone rang. It was a number from the jail, but this time I wasn't afraid to answer. "Mom!" It was Ethan's voice, but it sounded completely defeated. "I saw your press conference on the news." "And what do you think of it?" I asked him with a calmness that surprised me. "You destroyed everything," he said, but without anger, only deep sadness. "You destroyed my last chance to get out of here." "No, Ethan," I replied. "You destroyed that chance when you decided to turn your mother into your victim." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Are you ever going to forgive me?" he finally asked. "Someday," I said honestly. "When you pay for what you did, when you seek real help to change, when you understand the damage you caused, someday I might be able to forgive you. But I'm never going to forget." I hung up the phone and turned it off. Tomorrow I would start my new job, my new life. But that night, I just wanted to sleep peacefully in my own home, without fear, without threats, without blackmail. For the first time in 3 years, I was completely free. And although the path had been painful, although I had to face my own mistakes publicly, and although I had lost the relationship with my son forever, I knew I had made the right decision. Ethan had learned that victims can become strong, that secrets lose their power when exposed to the light, and that justice, although slow, eventually arrives. And I had learned that it is never too late to reclaim your own life, no matter how many years you have lived in the shadows. This was my story of liberation, a story that I hope inspires other women to break their own chains, no matter who put them there.